We're happy to work with the Department of Justice Community Relations Committee, the subcommittee on the complaint process, and also the committee for the pastors and the police officers going forward. There's great things that are done in the police department. We look for good days ahead to work on these 27 recommendations that the entire organization will work on. It will be a bottoms-up approach. We'll be forming a working committee that will look at the 27 recommendations, go through them piece by piece, have deliverables in terms of dates and implementation, and engage the community, engage the Department of Justice Community Relations Group that we've been working with for the last 9 months.
Thank you, Chief. I'd like to open it up to questions.
Mayor, obviously this whole situation caused a lot of tension throughout the community. Just what you can say now looking at these 27 recommendations. What can you say to the community to let them know that we can trust this department? That was an issue.
Well, you know, there's a, every single day our officers are interacting with the community. The type of situation that occurred with the shooting death of Mr. Barmore is by far the exception. Going through and talking to members of the department, the chief and others that have been around for a long time, you can't, there's not too many instances or incidents that come close to equaling the situation that we're dealing with in the Barmore case. That being said, we have interactions and we use force on a regular basis, and even if a use of force doesn't result in death of a citizen, suspect, what have you, it's our job to make sure that, and again I applaud the chief and under his leadership, the steps that had already been moving forward, the early warning system and the supervisory review of use of force, a number of steps that were initiated to make sure that we're doing the best job we can, minimizing those times when we have to use force, which can help provide a better and safer environment for both our employees and the community members that we're interacting with. The best way, as I said, that we can assure our community that we're doing our job is to be as open and transparent as we can. That's why we, video record our Rockstat meetings, and they're now, for the first time, our May meetings on the web. You can go to it and hear the reports of our various departments. That's why the department has been engaging in what they call a ComStat process, reviewing internally the various aspects of the police department. We're going to continue to work with our Department of Justice group, and we want our citizens to know that we're doing a good job. I think of the hostage situation we had recently, a barricaded suspect on Cumberland. We have, we can go through incident after incident after incident in which our officers do a tremendous job of de-escalating situations. What we want to make sure is that good is not good enough. We want to make sure we're doing the absolute best we can and that we're applying the best practices as the reviewers look at the situation nationally. Let me just say one other element of there's lawsuits that are still pending. While I'm not going to comment on the specifics of the lawsuits, and I'll turn any of those questions over to Mr. Hayes, what I can tell you is that from our view, when we're dealing with both wrongful death lawsuit as well as civil rights allegations, the best thing we can do to insulate ourselves and our department, our organization, from having Ms. Evans and Ms. Lopez have to come in an official capacity like they have done in Oakland as monitors, is to demonstrate that we have the ability to manage our own department. And we will be tough, we'll be scrutinizing ourselves, and we'll invite the community to be part of that process as we're scrutinizing and looking at our own organization. And that's why we've made the decision to publish the report so that the community can know here's where we're at. We're going to be very open about areas where we need improvement, and we're going to need the help of the community as we move forward.
Mayor, can I get you to react to something regarding officer supervision? The report says all officers benefit from diligent and consistent supervision. However, the Rockford Police Department's supervisory and shift structure makes it difficult to provide consistent supervision. According to Rockford Police Department personnel, during a typical week, officers may be supervised by a different supervisor each workday, and thus may have as many as 5 different supervisors in a week. This makes it difficult to establish a close supervisory relationship and would seem to make consistency in supervision and performance evaluation virtually impossible.
And that's exactly why we're moving towards geographic-based policing. That's why we've looked at making sure we have a strong connection between the people in our community, the areas where they live, and the management system we have in place to make sure that whatever we have on paper in terms of a policy, practice, and procedure is being aligned with our training and our management on a day-to-day basis. It is a challenge if time, and you have multiple shifts, and time is your only connection between these shifts, and you've got changes happening. That being said, there is, even separate and apart from the question about moving towards geographic-based policing, there's things that we can do today, even before the geographic policing model is fully developed, to make sure we are getting the right message across when it comes to some of the basic elements of training, some of the practices that were critiqued in the report, to assure the community that we're well aligned. And so part of what we did, and the chief could comment on this further if needed, last week when we took the position, which had been a Lieutenant Hopkins, promoted him to deputy chief in charge of the area of professional standards, is to make sure we're aligning the training that occurs, because then now he'll have monitoring and supervision over that, along with his review of and his management of the complaint process and his management of the administrative review process, including use of force review. Pulling all those pieces together, separate and apart from what we're doing on geographic policing, we'll make sure that we're doing the very best job we can right now to align all those areas.
Is there a second report that is being kept internal for now? There's not a separate report?
This is the only report.
Was this the first draft? I mean, is this version something that the city's seeing for the first time, or was the city privy to different drafts of it and able to offer revisions?
You know, for that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Hayes, who was working more directly with the consultants on a day-to-day basis to talk about it. What I can tell you from the report that we've published and put out, this is the only report we're working off of in terms of the recommendations and the methods of moving forward. And as I said before, the reason why we had it, and I think we got it end of late April, was that, as you see in the recommendations, they were guiding the types of questions that we would be asking during follow-up interviews during the investigative process on the internal investigation. Mr. Hayes?
The report itself indicates that Michael Graham, who is a 34-year professional out of the LA County Sheriff's Department, was part of the team, part of the professional team that went through this report to make sure that it was absolutely the best. That team included Attorneys Evans and Lopez, Mike Graham, as well as staff members here to make sure that the report was accurate. We discussed openly and debated some of the assessments, some of the opinions. I think the authors of the report would indicate that there's really no topics that were in the initial draft that weren't included in the final draft. There were some concerns about some of the fact issues related to personnel matters that through our process we asked to be redacted, but the substance and the critique is all there. And so the issue of any collaborative process among professionals, particularly attorneys, because these were retained attorneys, is that those previous drafts are part of the necessary process of creating a professional document. Initially, we had contemplating having an internal and external draft, but once we saw the original draft we basically decided all this is going to go public, and that's the best way to deal with it. So there is no second draft. There are no secrets that have been redacted. There are some personnel issues that were removed because we simply don't talk about some personnel matters in public, but the substance of the criticisms of the department, and in particular in those areas, those critiques of our management structures and things like that, still remain in the report.
Chief, the executive summary states that officers North and Poole violated RPD policy and training and used poor tactics. Would you concur with that finding, and if so, what should have been done differently that day?
I'll concur with the finding, and there's a pending internal investigation, so I'll be limited in any sort of follow-up comment on that.
Chief, do you believe if your officers would have made different choices, this shooting could have been avoided?
Well, there's, yes, definitely. That's why I signed a complaint against the officers, and we're vetting out that process. I have grave concerns for what occurred that afternoon. It's not out of alignment with policies and procedures. We'll let the internal investigation go forward and see the conclusion of that.
Now, this isn't the first shooting.